Fortnite just leaked that we could potentially have a massive update this week right ahead of FNCS. Major map changes and loot pool changes coming up in only a few days. I also want to talk about what happened with the solo cash cup today, who is dominating in solos, and why you maybe saw so many pros saying that this current format is terrible and Epic needs to change it. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Before we talk about the Cash Cup, I have to talk about the potentially massive map changes we have coming up very, very soon. We have an update taking place tomorrow or the next day, depending where you are in the world, and it could potentially get rid of an entire area of the map. A major feature of this update is going to be the arrival of Godzilla. If you guys saw the trailer at the start of the season, you probably forgot Godzilla was heavily featured in this. Now, this could lead to other changes as well because there was leaked weapons involving like the ability to fight Godzilla, but Fortnite ANZ themselves, the Australian New Zealand official Fortnite channel, has potentially just leaked that Godzilla is also going to change the map. They tweeted out, what if we met at the top of Shining Span and held hands? Someone replied, until a giant lizard arrives and destroys everything. They replied with an eyes emoji. Now, this isn't the best evidence in the world, but there's a lot of leakers pointing towards the fact that we are getting Godzilla in this week's update. And if Godzilla's gonna mow anything down on the map, it's gonna be Shining Span. Right now, this is not it's not the best area of the map. It hasn't got too much going on. It's not running straight into Seaport City, but it could be. It raises a good point. We potentially have some massive map changes coming up, and if Fortnite wanted to make some large map changes, it would be in this update. This is the furthest away from FNCS they can possibly make a major map update. FNCS is taking place on the 29th of January, and it's over in only 18 days. So I have to imagine no way they're gonna make massive meta changes during the middle of that. All they have to do is just not change the game for less than 3 weeks. Again, Fortnite has made major changes the night before Grand Finals before, so who knows, but this is looking like a very good indicator that this week's update could be a big one. We could be getting some crazy new weapons, some crazy new items. This is going to be the update most likely that will shake up not just the regular game, but competitive as well, with about 2 weeks to go until FNCS. Before we talk about the solo cash cup finals, I want to talk about a new trio. So we have confirmation. I talked about it in yesterday's video. Batman, Booga, and Yomzo are looking for one just for the next 2 weeks cash cups before Mason comes back from a holiday for FNCS. I said how I felt like this was a little bit weird. The timing could not be worse, and it's going to be awkward for them trying to find a good teammate who's only going to play cash cups but won't play FNCS. It looks like Yomzo and Batman Booga were having the same thoughts because they've now dropped Mason and they're looking for a third. With teams like, Reed still looking for potentially a trio. He didn't have the best performance with Chimp and Skittles after getting dropped by Booga. We have a few big players right now looking for a team, and again, FNCS is right around the corner. This could, however, affect some of our established teams. Yomzo, Batman Booga, and Mason were, in my opinion, definitely one of the top 5 trios on NA right now. They've been placing super highly in everything, so Batman Booga and Yomzo are going to be able to get a really solid teammate, or we could potentially see them split up and try and make their own trio. So this could create some kind of a snakening domino effect. We haven't heard anything just yet as far as I can see from social media. I don't know who's going to be filling that spot, but there are some very big candidates, and any trio right now who's not quite performing up to scratch are going to be looking for a new trio. Remember, once you play this first round of FNCS, you are locked in with that trio for the first 2 open rounds and group stages. The only time you can switch teammates is for the last chance qualifier, where it's every player in the entire region in any division playing, and there's only 3 spots in Grand Finals. You do not want to miss out on qualifying through the opens and the group stages, so you want to have a good trio locked in now because you don't really have a second chance. Going after 1 of 3 spots in the entire region is going to be a nightmare. Now, let's kick off with solos. On NA, we had none other than Vert finishing in first on 396 points, over 40 points clear of second. Now, I feel like I shouldn't have to introduce Vert, but I realized after doing my watch party on my Twitch channel and looking at the leaderboard, a lot of people have forgotten just how good Vert is. He has over $100,000 in earned, and he was actually the NA West solo FNCS champion from Chapter 2 Season 3. So Vert proving that he is still one of the best solo players on NA years later. 396 points is no joke. He almost broke 400 points. To put that in perspective, EU was won today on 337. Now, there was a bit of an issue with queues that I'll talk about in a second that has a lot of pros really upset, but Vert absolutely dominated. Second place, a player I've never heard of before. I don't want to say this guy's cheating. I checked out his Fortnite tracker. He's played a whole bunch of events. He hasn't earned in a while, and maybe he's just come back to the game and he's an absolute demon. If he is, absolute shout out to him. Congratulations, he is a demon. I don't want to just say anyone who I don't know is a cheater. Usually when they've got like 20 events played, you have to imagine with less than 20 tournaments in your life, you're not going to be one of the best players on one of the biggest regions or any region for that matter. But he's played a bunch of events. I hope he's legit. If he is, congrats, because that is an insane pop-off performance. In third place, we had Bolts on 346, which means Bolts has now won last week and come third this week. He is shaping up and making himself one of the most consistent solo players in the world right now, if not the most consistent in the world. Absolutely dominating every single solo Cash Cup. Fifth, first, and third is ridiculous in this current format. In fourth place, I always mispronounce his name. I'm sorry. I think I say it as Chavi or as currently as Javi. I don't know. He is fourth place. He is a Hispanic demon, 342 points, just falling behind Bolts. I will say as well, for a lot of you guys who watch my React channel, you guys love the watch along I did with Bolts, doing like a VOD review with the pro in the call. I fully intend to do this with Bolts. He has agreed to jump in a call with me, so look out on my React channel for that video. We'll have Bolts breaking down all of his solo gameplay, talking about why he does what he does. Keep an eye out. That'll be coming out this week. We also had Virgo rounding out our top 5 on 334, Craze in 6th on 333, Rapid 330, Muzz 325. Again, Muzz so ridiculously consistent right now in solos, G Money on 322, and Curly on 315. So a super stacked top 10. Now, before I talk about EU, where it was way more of an issue, I do need to talk about a major complaint a lot of pro players have and why some of the leaderboards look really funny sometimes. If you look at the EU leaderboard this week, you wonder why everyone's points are so much lower. On EU, we didn't have a high skill-based matchmaking queue for 11 minutes at the end of the tournament. Pros ended their game and waited over 11 minutes and still didn't get a game. This has a disastrous impact on the leaderboard. If you finish your last game with only 1 or 2 minutes left in the tournament and you don't get a game, that's kind of on you. There's a lot of skill to managing your queues and making sure you get a whole last game in to get max amount of points. But when you finish and you leave yourself over 10 minutes spare, you really should be getting a game. And this is why a lot of pros are asking that Fortnite increases the amount of players who get into these solo Cash Cup finals, saying that 600 just isn't enough, especially when you have skill-based matchmaking on top of that. Because what you see happen on a lot of regions, which is what happened on EU this week, a lot of players who are way further down the leaderboard, they're not anywhere near the earnings right now, they get their last queue. If they go on to win that game, it catapults them way above players who are way above them, but didn't even get a last game. They're missing out on potential of, 80, 90 points if they have a massive pop-off game. So I don't want to take it away from the person who wins and the players who win, because they've done phenomenally given the circumstances. But if you've seen a lot of hate and a lot of negativity on social media right now from certain pros saying they missed their queues, this system sucks, that's what they're complaining about. I like the fact that it's top 600 because it's absolutely stacked. These games are so fun to watch. I am loving these solo Cash Cup finals, but after seeing some of the queues and some of the issues today, I do feel like maybe that should be bumped out to like 800 or maybe 1,000. Yes, that would maybe make some of the games a little bit less stacked, but with skill-based matchmaking, all the best players would have a pop-off first or 2 games, then they would be versing all the same players anyway, and would alleviate a lot of those issues with the queues. I want to give a special shout out to Vidil as well, coming in 13th place on NA. I've been tracking Vidil a whole bunch since his move to NA. It's super exciting when pros come across regions. He was actually in first place for a lot of the Cash Cup, died 4 times on spawn, ended his stream, and then got a 22nd, an 8th, and a 2nd. So he was really bringing it back right at the very end. I hope that doesn't lead to Vidil not streaming solo Cash Cups going forward. He did extremely well. Now moving over to actual EU, we had a tie for first place. Chap and Malibuka tying on 337 points. Now if you don't know, in Fortnite, the way the tie break works is whoever has the most wins. If wins are tied, it goes to average elims. If average elims are tied, it goes to average placement. Now for Chap, he had 3 wins. He played 10 matches, won 3 of them, and finished on 337. So he easily beat Malibuka out for the tie break, and that's the difference of $8,000 versus 4,800. Malibuka, again, one of the most consistent solo players in the world. We've seen him absolutely dominating the solo victory cups. Now he's doing it in the regular solo Cash Cups as well, and he's not just doing it on EU either. He's placing on NA. He came 24th on NA today and 2nd on EU, so he earned on both regions, which is just insane to even qualify on both regions, let alone earn. Now, this was big for Chap. If you watched my video yesterday, you know Chap, Chicho, and Teeny, their trio did just split up and they all went separate ways. Teeny found a really good team, Chicho found a really good team, Chap has found no one, and I feel like coming first place on the region in solos is a very good way to get some attention on you and say, hey, I'm looking for a team, I'm currently popping off, who's going to play with me? This could lead to one of those domino snaking effects that I was just talking about on NA, now with Batman, Booga, and Iomzo. We'll have to wait and see. Now, third place, speaking of Chap and Chicho and Teeny, we now have Friss, who is now teaming up with Teeny, seeing how he's going to play in trios. He's playing very well in solos, coming third on 329 points. Again, when I just talked about Vert's performance getting almost 400, Chap played 10 matches, won 3 of them, and only got 337, which shows how consistent Vert was over on NA. Now, to emphasize this issue of what's going on with the queues, so you don't think I'm just crazy or just complaining or trying to say that a certain player didn't deserve to win, if we go back and look at the finals from EU on week 1 and week 2, the winning points on week 1 was Malabuka on 405, and we had Vico come in second on 378 and Zhu come in third on 341. All 3 of these points are actually more than what Chap just got to win this week on 337. Last week it wasn't quite as bad. We had Cammy come in first on 374, Vico come in second on 344, Firen on 343, Mumsy 340, Bevy's 340, and then Kilba in 370. So in both weeks, we've had 3 to 5 people who all got more points than the amount it took to win in this week. And yes, it's solos. Some players can pop off. Sometimes they have good weeks and bad weeks, but you can very clearly see there's a massive difference in the amount of points players got because that last queue just never popped, which just ruins so many players' chances. We had Kiro, Shark, and Seti, who were all in the top 3 before that last game popped pretty much, who now didn't even get inside the top 5. They still held on to the top 10 because of just how many points they had, but with their point averages, if you look at Shark, he had a point average of over 40 points. If you think if he got into another game, it's safe to assume he would have had a good game and could have won it. He might have not. That's how Fortnite tournaments go, but I think there does need to be something looked at here from Fortnite to make these solo cash cups even better. Again, they're super exciting. If they don't change, I'm still going to love watching them. They are phenomenal, but I do feel for players who feel like they now have a bit of luck involved about when they play their last game. If you jump out of your last game early and you leave yourself 15 minutes to queue, if a last minute game does pop, then all the players who play out their last game have a way higher chance of getting points. If you don't, you risk it, you play out the last game and it doesn't pop, you lose all the potential points. You understand what I'm trying to say. I hope Epic can maybe thinking about changing it. Both this week's trio and solo cash cups have me super excited though. We have a massive update in a couple days. Like I said, the Eval Cup will be our first chance to see how that changes up the competitive meta. That's why they have these tournaments every week. So I'll probably make a video talking about what changed in the update if it's massive for competitive, but FNCS right around the corner. Make sure you have your trio, make sure you have them locked in, because like I said, once you play the first round of FNCS, you cannot swap teammates until the last chance. I do want to say, for those of you guys who aren't Division 1 yet, if you're Division 2, Division 3, I see a lot of people complaining about how they can't play FNCS. You can play FNCS in any division. Like I said earlier in the video, you just can't play in the play-ins or the group stages, but you can play in that last chance qualifier. No matter what the division, you can play in at least one round of FNCS and still have a chance to make it directly to grand finals.